Hi there, welcome to Power to the Flower. You've joined me today in my garden here in Walnut Creek, California, which is a Zone 9B. And today I want to talk about succulent cutting arrangements and just the ease and a few tips on how to do it. So this weekend we had some family visit. Matt's brother and his family came to visit, and they have 4 children, 2 of which have been super supportive of Power to the Flower. Lauren is a junior in high school, and she is one of my 2 nieces who really helped me kind of figure out how to use Instagram. And then Austin is in 7th grade, and he is my number 1 YouTube fan. That's what he always says. And he watches my videos on Tuesdays when I post them on YouTube. And so I thought it would be super fun to do some planting with my 2 number 1 fans. This weekend, I put them kind of in teams with my kids and said, make a succulent arrangement, go. Lauren paired up with Noah, and Austin kind of did his own / paired up with Kaylee, and Kaylee did the videoing. So it was a super cute little video that came out of this time together, and I just thought it would be fun to share it with you and also share some of the questions that they had, because I think they're probably questions that lots of people have. So let's start with that.
2 baskets. This is going to be like quizzing you guys on how closely you're paying attention to the Power to the Flower videos. This is your quiz.
Oh, Austin,
quiz
this
time.
is your quiz.
And Lauren, she says she's my biggest IG
Have you met
fan.
Austin?
I am your biggest Instagram fan.
And this is Austin, my biggest YouTube fan. So let's see how they're doing with their fanship.
Your fans out there.
Okay, so the first thing you do is you line in the basket with some plastic so that the whole thing doesn't kind of fall out. But we don't need it to be very high. Okay, so the question then is, are you going to put this inside or outside? Probably
Outside?
outside.
My succulent.
So I'm just going to put holes in this so that it can drain.
Okay.
Okay, so why did I ask the question about whether it's going to be indoors or outdoors? So if they were going to put the succulent arrangement in the house, I would have put a little bed of rocks at the bottom of the basket in order to make a little reservoir for the water to sit in when they eventually start watering it. Because they're going to do it outside, it's even easier making a couple of drain holes, and then when they water, it will all flow out, because you don't want those succulents sitting in water. They do not want that. They want to be soaked and then dry, soaked and then dry.
Succulent soil there that you can fill this up.
Well, that's very important to know. I did not realize you needed a special soil for succulents.
Okay, so the reason why, yes, is because it's extra porous. It has a lot of perlite in it, little rocks basically. And so that makes it drain really well, because succulents want to be totally soaked and then totally let the water drain away and dry out completely before watering again.
So smart.
So here's my tip. Me and Christina are going to go into the front and plant, and you guys are going to make your amazing succulent arrangements. And these are my top tips for you. Number 1 is, when you put your dirt, you want it to be high in the middle and go down like this. So you want your thing to kind of move up. And there's 2 ways you can do that. Like the way when you look at it, you want it to be high, down to low. You can either put your dirt, like pack it quite high and then lower on the sides. But the other thing to do is you actually kind of stack your plants like this. Do you see? So that kind of will make it, so you don't want everything to be flat like this. You want it to kind of go up like a mound.
Got it.
Okay?
Wow.
Here's all your cuttings. And if you need more, there's some all over the garden, and Kaylee will show you which ones to cut. No soil should show. You want the whole thing to be just covered with plants.
Wow.
Got it.
Okay? And what else? It's like a contest, I think.
Wow.
Contest.
May the Lord be with you.
Good luck. Good luck.
Lost.
Kara, mound it up a little in the center.
Yeah, in the center.
Okay.
Mound it in the center right here.
No, it's going. Okay. Oh, and this is also
Give me a thumbs
really
up,
great,
Austin.
thing for cleaning. So if you get dirt in there, you can just clean it out with this.
Should I do that to the dust that's on my succulents at home?
Yes.
Okay.
Get a paintbrush and do that.
Okay.
Seems silly, but yet important.
Noah,
So
you
there's
are
2
so
snips.
good at this. Thank you.
Auntie Kara, don't cut Lauren's dancing out of your video.
Yeah, no, I won't embarrass you.
No, feel free.
No, yeah. If somebody starts dancing, keep it in.
Is this how we do it, Kelly?
No, it's like this, right?
Yes, like that.
Like how I
Perfect,
am?
Lauren. Yep, Lauren, you got it.
So one of the questions that came up was in which way to put the succulent cutting. Do you want to, and the children ended up deciding that the important thing was that the stem was in the soil. So when the children were doing their arrangements, they ended up with kind of a flat arrangement because all of the stems were sticking directly into the soil. And to make it slightly more interesting, you could turn the succulent cuttings to the side. The roots will find their way into the soil, and then like your next one can be a little bit more propped up, and that will give sort of a layered effect and will make your succulent arrangement slightly more three-dimensional rather than flat.
How long can you keep the succulents in your, like, you had it all cut up in here? Did you just do that today?
No, those have been in there for weeks. So the thing with the succulents,
die.
yeah, is that when you take
How do I kill all of mine?
you take the cutting
I watered them, by the way.
Thanks.
and then you put it in the dirt. Trick is you wait until you go like this and it doesn't come out. It actually, the roots are holding the
How
soil.
long does that usually take?
It depends on the time of year because they're growing very quickly in the winter and they're going dormant and going to sleep in the summer. So it's going to take longer in the summer.
Is when they grow.
And that's the easiest time to do this. So you don't water until that happens.
You don't want
You just let them, because what they're doing is they're getting calluses. Like on this one, for instance, you can see it has like a little black tip.
Yeah.
That's its callus, and you don't want to water before it calluses. And then you can see it grew a little root since we cut it. Do you see that little root? So once you have a root and a callus, you can water. It's ready to water. Otherwise, it will rot if you water it too early.
Wow.
So one of the questions that came up was about succulent cuttings. So the succulent cuttings that we have in these little pots in the video were from our resurrection gardens and our fairy gardens that we had just deconstructed in the previous few days, but those had been constructed over a month before. So with succulent cuttings, you can keep them around and keep using them. All you need to do is kind of replant them in soil. But if they hang out in a bucket for a few days, it's totally fine.
like this.
Like make them close together so you don't see any dirt.
Not one speck.
Because we want to put more. Because we don't want them. Because we want them to be
that short?
maybe a little shorter.
Another thing that you can hear the kids talking about is how many succulents to use. And typically I like to use enough so that you do not see any soil at all. So one of my favorite succulent YouTubers is called Laura Eubanks. She has taught me a lot about succulents. Check her out if you're interested in succulent information. She is a landscape designer down in San Diego and she uses succulents exclusively. And she just gives so much confidence to how like pliable and malleable these plants are. So anyways, she uses the term tapestry. So a succulent tapestry is when you have tons and tons of succulents in cuttings typically, and you don't see soil, but you have just lots of little beautiful colors and textures together. So that's kind of how I like to make my arrangements, succulent tapestry-esque. So one thing I'd like to point out is just the ease of this project and how fun it is and rewarding it is for both kids and adults. So my recommendation would be to buy, a handful of succulents, plant them in your landscape somewhere. It doesn't have to be like in your most prized spot, but somewhere, and ensure that you have them growing so that you can cut off of them as much as you want. And when you finish your succulent arrangement and it begins to maybe grow, or a year later you're kind of over it, you want to make another one, don't throw those away. They are rooted in, they are growing now, and you can transplant those to the landscape, use them in another arrangement. I mean, it's just like a recyclable material that just keeps giving. Another thing that came up about succulents was their care. And actually most succulents want to have shade in the hot, hot heat of the summer, and they want to have sun in the winter when they're actually growing. So if you make an arrangement with cuttings, they are very tender at that point, and they're using all of their energy to make a callus and then make new roots. So it's good to keep them in the shade until they have started to root in and you start watering them, at which point you can move them into a part sun position is their favorite, especially avoiding afternoon intense heat. Now I'm just talking broadly here, not all succulents need to avoid intense heat. Some are very fine in the intense heat, but in general, the general rule of thumb is they're not cactuses. They do want some sun, but they don't want to bake out there. The other thing about succulent care is the watering, and they like to have a deep soak. They want to totally dry out, and then they want to get another deep soak. And that can be as frequently as once a week, or more often in the winter, or as infrequently as every few weeks / whenever I remember. In the summer, they don't need as much water. They need more shade because they're dormant. They're actually sleeping at that point. So they're not doing a lot of growing. They don't need a lot of water. They do need some, but they don't need a lot. In the winter is when you really want to be watering them regularly. I loved what the kids ended up with in the end. I think Lauren and Noah's was really full and gorgeous. And I loved how Austin used that basket and kind of twisted, I think it's a string of dolphins. I'm not sure which succulent that was, but I think it's called string of dolphins, around the handle of the basket. That looked so awesome. And that's totally doable. All you need to do is make sure that at least one little bit of the string is on some soil, and the succulent will eventually root into the soil. That's kind of the end of the video. I think their arrangements turned out beautifully. Thank you so much to Lauren, Austin, Noah, and Kaylee for their contribution to this video. Thank you so much for watching. I post videos every Tuesday about gardening here in Zone 9, and you can catch me on Instagram and Facebook during the week. See you next time. Bye.